spice it up. You know what I mean? Put some nutmeg in the thing, yeah? And if you remember what some of our parents used to tell us, lengthen it, laji, you know what I mean? Put some flour in it. In these times, it'll fool you. Mischief and corruption, flowers on the shelf, and you can have that with a soda tonight. Calling all good people. And I know you guys in Canada, you have problems with me when I talk about the soda. Come down. I'll get you one. All of you people living in Canada up there. Must outdo that too. Because no biscuit can replace a soda. Names are numerous to mention. I'll do my best to deliver for us. So pull your easy chair out. It's going to be a very interesting evening. We'll take your calls at some point this evening as well. Flowers. That's what we love to do here. We love to give people their flowers. You hear? I have two very special people with me in the studio. I expect another two to join us. And the indomitable Sheridan Gregoire, Mr. G, will join us as well. And I see some lovely faces all across from me here. There's somewhere over there. They will all join us as we honor one of our great Dominicans. So sit back, sit tight, relax. In a moment from now, I'll have Mr. G introduce that this evening. Introduce our honoree. Where there's no democracy, people are not free to be the best that they can be. Nothing can more retard a nation than this incentive and victimization. No drive to succeed. So all of you, thanks for joining us and staying with us, like I said, for the next 2 hours. Thank you for sitting down. Some of you on drive time. Be careful as you drive home. Who held their dignity in their commitments, even when targeted by their own government. Come, let's deliver to them one by one. So call your friend, call your neighbor, tell them we are honoring another great Dominican tonight. All the flowers adorn. And all of them need to be locked into Q95 this evening. Flowers is what we have to give. Those who stand for the law and rights and against crime in the land. And whereas you dispense justice, but you got none. On Emmanuel, so the patriots of the air ask me to deliver this bouquet. Flowers to you, sir, before you go away. Those of you try to call this evening, well, you know what? We always preempt the roll call when we are doing Kudos for Heroes, okay? So let me introduce Mr. Sheridan Gregoire, Mr. G, the chairman of the Kudos to Heroes Committee. And when he's done that introduction, we'll introduce everybody else on the panel this evening. A very good evening to you, Mr. G.
Pastor Rodney, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well for a young man, you know.
Well, that's what I figured. Your youth is certainly showing. And Sobers Esprit commented on it a little earlier. And Arundel Thomas endorsed that.
Arundel endorsed that as well.
Yes, so we know you're looking good. Before I begin the introduction, I just wanted to do a little housekeeping here to just let you and Sherwin know that a couple of people are waiting to be admitted into the room. So Sherwin needs to admit them. Dr. Dion George is waiting, and one or two other people. So I
Okay.
appreciate if you just admit them on the laptop,
All
so
right.
they can participate with us. And we expect that Leroy Waddick Charles is on his way, and Gregory Larabes as well.
Well, I'll tell you, we already have in studio with us my dearest nurse Felix, the Right Honorable Arundel Thomas, and Gregory Washler is here with us as well.
You mean Go Washla, not PT Washing,
No, not PT Wash at all. Me or Go Washer Shimela.
as somebody say, Peyton Wash.
Oh, they're Go Petam Wash. All right,
Yes,
but whatever wash you call him, he's here tonight and he's well clad, looking as usual, very elegantly clad this evening.
as of course Dr. Simone Matthews with us as well already, and we do have Dr. Dion George with us, and also Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd Stevens, who is the distinguished sister of Miss Sonia Lloyd. She's with us this evening. She was able to grace us with her presence, and we certainly appreciate that. We'll be looking forward to Pastor Rodney to hearing from, I'm sure, a little later on.
I'm sure. I'll be looking forward to hearing that myself.
Pastor Rodney, whenever you're ready, you'll just tell your humble servant, and we can get going.
Yeah, like I said, Mr. G, you can go right ahead now and let's have the citation, and we will take it from there.
Well, in that case, let me just say a very good evening to you, Pastor Rodney, and good evening and a very warm welcome to our esteemed colleagues. Leroy Waddick Charles is not here yet. He's on his way. Gregory Rabes is with you in the studio, and so is Nurse Rosie Felix. Nurse Rosie Felix is here representing the Lloyd family in studio tonight. I want to say good evening to Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd Stevens, the very distinguished sister, as I said, of Miss Sonia Lloyd of blessed memory. And I want to say also good evening and welcome to all of your family members and friends and associates, some of whom will be joining us on the platform tonight. One or two of them are having a little difficulty with the link coming in. I'm hoping that we can get their contact numbers so that Sherwin can contact them and help them to log in. It's quite simple. But I also want to say a very pleasant good evening to all of those who are online with us tonight in Radio Land on Q95 and our online platforms on Facebook and YouTube. I'm not sure whether Sherwin has got us live yet on Facebook and on YouTube, but we are supposed to be by now. If we're not, then I'm sure that he'll take care of it right away. So thank you for being with us in remembering and posthumously recognizing and awarding Miss Sonia Lloyd tonight. It is Monday, 31st October, 2022. We are particularly thankful to Miss Sonia Lloyd's sister, Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd Stevens, and the other family members who have graced us with their presence on the panel tonight. And we also shout out all of the members of Miss Lloyd's family, her friends, her students, her associates, and other loved ones, who I'm sure all miss her very dearly. A very special good evening as well to you all and to all our Dominicans worldwide, Q family listeners, and to our distinguished kudos to our Heroes Committee members with us tonight from various parts of the United States, Canada, and Dominica. Everyone, the Q family is, I'm sure, is tuned in to Q95 right now on YouTube, on Facebook, and on other streaming platforms. We're here tonight to posthumously honor a distinguished and very gentle lady, a cultural icon on the big station. I'm absolutely delighted, and indeed I feel honored and privileged to say a very special good evening, to embrace the distinguished members of our Q95 Heroes Committee, Ms. Janice Williams Russell in Toronto, retired Army Command Sergeant Major, Ralph Alcindor in Atlanta, Georgia, Ms. Corinne Francis in San Francisco, Dr. Simone Matthew in Atlanta, Georgia, former UN Ambassador Crispin Gregoire in New York, Dr. Dion George in Atlanta, Georgia, and of course, Mr. Leroy Waddick Charles in Dominica, and yourself, Pastor Rodney in Dominica. But I could not really go any further before I also acknowledge and recognize the very, very distinguished Mr. Sobers Esprit, who also made it here tonight He really, nothing would have kept him away. I'm not sure how long he can stay with us. He's a very busy man. We hope he will stay with us as long as he can. Also, Arundel Thomas is with us in studio. I'm not going to say the name that Pastor Rodney usually refers to him as. Pastor Rodney will say it himself when he comes to speak about him later on. But I'm very happy that we have Sobers Esprit, Gregory Rabes, and Arundel Thomas here with us tonight. They know something about culture. They know something about Miss Sonia Lloyd. They will tell us what they know. And then three, of course, of our distinguished committee members are with us tonight on the panel. Dr. Simone Matthews here, Dr. John George here. We expect Ambassador Crispin Gregoire to be here with us as well shortly. But as I said, all of them, all the other members are logged in and listening and watching at this time. So to our cherished listeners, be sure to join our live stream and share the live on Facebook and on YouTube at Q95 FM Radio and on all of the other several streaming platforms. So my fellow Dominicans, our cherished and extended Q family listeners and friends of Dominica at home and abroad, as chairman of the Q95, kudos to our Heroes Committee. And on behalf of our entire committee, we feel honored to posthumously present Miss Sonia Lloyd to Dominica, to the region, and to the world as our 13th Dominican national hero. Now, here are a few things we know about Miss Sonia Lloyd that we can share with you. Sonia Octavia Lloyd was a virtuous woman. She is, in fact, a cultural icon. But in life, there is a time for everything, and it was with profound sadness that we had learned of the passing of Dominica's very beloved Miss Sonia Lloyd, and very fondly known by all as Miss Lloyd, particularly her students. And so she was indeed a very loving sister, an aunt, a cousin, a devoted friend to many. She was 73 years of age at the time of her passing. Peacefully, I might say, while asleep in her Kings Hill residence on Sunday, July 3rd, 2022. Sonia, as we like to remember her, is predeceased by 6 of her siblings, her parents. Mrs. Ruby John Louis Lloyd in 1996, she passed, and Mr. Norwis Lloyd, who passed in 1998. Sonia was the 9th child of 12 children to her parents. Cherishing her memories are her surviving 5 siblings residing in the USA and in France: Veronica Patsy John Lewis, Bernadette Austri, Maxwell Lloyd, Virginia Lloyd Fullerton, Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd Stevens, who is with us tonight. Her nieces and nephews are Jennifer Webb Francis, her caregiver, Anne-Marie Gregory, Wendy Austri, attorney at law, Glenda Marie Christopher, Joshua Oliver, and Karumi. So I am certain that she is very fondly remembered by a trove of extended family members, especially in-laws, Dr. Jesse Stevens, Albert Constable, very special friends, including Andra Christian, retired principal of St. Martin's School, and Sister Lucy Alexander, vice principal of the St. Martin's School, and Josephine Thomas. Sonia was a lifelong teacher. She taught professionally at the St. Martin's School just about 5 decades until her retirement in early 2000. Sonia remained in Dominica doing just what she loved to do, which is teaching, playwriting, acting, singing, song composing, outdoor camping. Of course, that was in her much younger days. Active participation on several committees, especially that of the Committee Poet Creole. Loves to attend church and involved in church-related activities such as the church choir, rooming and boarding countless school children from village communities at her house at no cost, and volunteering in any capacity where such a need existed, especially during the hurricane season. So I am sure that the beloved sister who's with us here tonight, Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd Stevens, and other members of our panel, will tell us much more about Sonia's activities and her music. Sonia, but really, she was a selfless person in her service to her beloved Dominica. She had no ulterior or profit-making motives beyond merely seeing Dominica's culture prosper. This principle is eloquently illustrated in her popular songs, a CD of 1999 titled Talo Galo, where two of the songs specifically Nuke Prosper and Kite Kolte La Vive underscores this value. So Dr. Gwyneth and others, I'm sure, will tell us more. But each song on the album directs us as Dominicans to embrace our cultural uniqueness as a people and to play our part in making Dominica a better place, not only while we are here, but also that others can add value when they have departed from it. Her funeral services were held on Monday, August 8, 2022, at the Rosa Cathedral. I imagine that many of you might have wondered over the years why Miss Lloyd never moved to the United States to join the sisters. Well, I believe the answer is she just simply wanted to be with her beloved Dominica. So salutations, of course, to Miss Lloyd, Miss Sonia Lloyd, and the distinguished family. But in addition to her valuable transformational lifelong works and accomplishments, Miss Sonia Lloyd always brought out the best in many others to work hard, to be true to themselves and their professions, to reach out to excellence and be dedicated to being the very best that they can be in whatever they did. So kudos indeed to Miss Sonia Lloyd. She is a true Dominican national hero for instilling a positive mental attitude that elevated the content of the cultural dialogue on so many matters over 50 years. For being a great Dominican who demonstrated that each one of us, ordinary people, can do extraordinary things in whatever we set our minds to do. But tonight we invite you, our cherished Q95 listeners in every nook and cranny at home, in the region and globally, to join us in posthumously appreciating, embracing, recognizing, celebrating, awarding, and extending kudos to our 13th Dominican national hero, Miss Sonia Lloyd, and her family, her friends, and loved ones. Can rest assured that she will remain highly respected, admired, and cherished by all Dominicans abroad and by all of us at home in our beautiful little nature island of the Caribbean. And so, for her exemplary performance in transcending self interest, for going well over and beyond the call of duty or normal demands and expectations of a profession, for commanding respect in society, and for being a true pioneer in her work and occupation, for her unique, indefatigable work ethic, for innovation, her achievements, her tenacity in the face, I am sure, of all the challenges that she surely encountered and endured in her lifetime, for her impactful leadership, her highly productive community involvement, collaborations and partnerships, for her dedicated commitment to education, to people's well-being, and to social development, and for being just a notable cultural icon. For these and many more reasons, Q95's Kudos to Our Heroes Committee posthumously recognizes, appreciates, embraces, awards Miss Sonia Lloyd as a national champion, and we bestow upon her the very well-deserved and indeed very well-earned esteemed title of a true Dominican national hero. So we all say kudos to our 13th Dominican national hero, Miss Sonia Lloyd, and her family and her friends who stood steadfastly beside her through thick and thin. And so it is the honor and delight of every member of the Kudos to Our Heroes Committee, of all of us Dominicans at home and abroad, and for all of us in the Q family to say to everyone everywhere, we know, we love, we respect Sonia Lloyd. May the good Lord bless all of the other true Dominican national heroes whose works positively impact the lives of Dominicans and others everywhere, every day. But on behalf of our Kudos to Our Heroes Committee, and on behalf of every Dominican at home and abroad, thank you, Miss Sonia Lloyd, for your great works, for your humanity, and our thanks and blessings to all of the family, friends, loved ones that are left to deeply mourn your great loss. And with these few words, I yield back to you now, Pastor Rodney.
Thank you very much, Mr. G. And as we listen to this, we realize that indeed the committee has, made a great choice in honoring someone who's really been part of the fabric of education as well as the cultural landscape of our beautiful Commonwealth of Dominica. And we really stand to honor people like this all the time. Thanks for that citation.
And might I add as well, Pastor Rodney, that we had in fact intended to honor and award Miss Sonia Lloyd before she passed, but we had planned to do it at this time.
Around this time, yes.
Around this time, because of the tradition and the independence and the culture. But unfortunately, I guess we don't always have control of those things. I guess the maker had other plans for her, but we're happy to do it today.
I'm sure we are happy to do that. We have, like you said, 2 members on our committee. We'll take some comments from them in a moment. And then I will do a little bit of interaction with the people here before we take some tributes, some of the recorded tributes. So I'm going to ask both Dr. Simone and George, Dion George, to in that order, make a few comments there, and then we will have some interaction here. Following that, we'll take a few tributes, and then we'll get to Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd, who I am probably seeing and will be hearing for the first time. I don't know that person at all. I'm hoping I'll be very well introduced to her. So, Dr. Simone, talk to us a little bit. A very good evening to you.
Yes, good evening, Pastor Rodney, our kudos to our Heroes Committee, as well as everyone else who's part of the panel. Good evening to our Q95 listeners at home and abroad, as well as our Facebook and YouTube live viewers on Q95 FM radio. We say good evening to Colson Shillingford, Jess Beville, Hermelina Watson Juveny. Thank you for being here. And don't forget, as you come in, share the live. So it is indeed an honor as a member of the Kudos to Our Heroes Committee to be here as we honor Miss Sonia Lloyd. I had the privilege of being a student of Miss Sonia Lloyd at the St. Martin's School. And I fondly remember her, especially during this time of the year, where we were immersed in culture, in singing her songs, in crafting and perfecting our dancing. And we had, girls who were designated as the best drummers, who was the best ballet dancers. Of course, we just used our uniform, just hiced up our skirts, and we were off and running with our ballet dancing. So Miss Lloyd brings back very warm memories. And I think we are seeing the need to keep recognizing our cultural icons, especially when we did a previous program last week. And I think it was Ian Jackson who reminded us that in a class of maybe 20, 30 students, he only had 2 students who knew who Alwyn Booley was. So I think we are seeing the absolute need to continue to do these programs where we recognize our icons, our legends, the people who have paved the way forward for the rest of us. And I'm also hoping we can repeat these programs so that we will keep reminding the next generations of the importance of recognizing these wonderful Dominicans who have made significant contributions to our culture and our history. So again, it is wonderful to be here, part of this illustrious panel, and to make a contribution to the program. Mali Austri, Anthony Seja, Josephine Williams, Magdalene Bontif Honore, come on in. Thank you for being here on the Facebook Live. And we look forward to engaging with you as we reminisce and we celebrate Miss Lloyd's life.
Thank you, Dr. Simon Matthew. Dr. Dion George. Dr. George, all right.
Yes, good. I had to unmute my computer. Good evening. Thank you for the invite, for being part of this ceremony, an acknowledgement of Miss Sonia Lloyd, which I believe is duly noted and well-deserved. So, as always, I like to put things in context because I believe that we are on this world for a purpose. And in some, I think the purpose is to know, love, and serve God. And I believe that Miss Sonia Lloyd has demonstrated that with her service. She has done so through the calling of her career, which is teaching, which incidentally, that's what I do. Also, Dr. Simon Matthew does as well. And with many other things, I would like to bestow upon Miss Sonia Lloyd this evening. But I will start with a scripture out of the good book. And that scripture is 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Those of you with your cell phone, you may feel comfortable to put it up. And it says that we should study and show God that we understand. We should study and show God that we understand. And for someone to devote, according to Mr. G, 5 decades, 50 years of their life to teaching, the race has been run and the race is well fought. But during that race, I just want to point out a few things, and I want to say kudos to our hero. In 1999, she was the National Cultural Council Special Recognition Award. In 2014, she was the National Cultural Council and Cultural Golden Drum Award. But some of them touched me, and I'll tell you what touched me. Former Legion of Mary. When they say Mary, I say, who is Mary? Miriam, the wife of Joseph, the mother of Christ. Former member of the Roseau Cathedral Choir, Rotary Club of Dominica. So much so that she was able to be the portrait of a stamp of the Commonwealth of Dominica. These immaculate recognitions for someone, I think, is deserving of this award tonight. But I'll say this. Some people measure success with financial success. I am one who sees it differently. I believe, and that's just my opinion, that someone's success is how do you make the world a better place? How do you impact people's lives? Your family. It says that charity begins at home. How do you impact your country? And Mr. or Pastor Rodney, without further ado, I have noted several areas in which this blessed daughter of Christ have served Dominica. And I want to say good evening to the panel and thank you to my board members and the persons who are here tonight, including the family of Miss Sonia Lloyd, for her contribution that she has made to Dominica. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. George. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have with me a few people here in studio, and I'm going to ask every one of them to give us some, introductory comments as we honor Sonia Lloyd. Those of you tuning in right now, it's 2 minutes past 7 o'clock. I just want you to know that this evening we are honoring posthumously Miss Sonia Lloyd. Mr. G, one of the things that I remember all the time about Miss Lloyd is my conversations with my wife. She taught my wife history. And my wife says she was the most patient teacher that ever taught her. And just this afternoon, before I left home, I'm sure she's listening now. I said, what about Miss Lloyd that you remember most? She says she was just a great history teacher, most patient teacher. And so, among everything else, that's something that stands out for me personally. Among the other things, like one of the songs that she did. We will touch a few of them tonight, but this one really touched me very much. I have with me one of my favorite nurses as well, and we're going to ask her as the only rose in the room. Her first name is Rosie, mind you, but she's also the only rose in the room to share a few thoughts with us. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are not looking at that on Facebook, she is immaculately dressed in her warp this evening. Good evening, Nurse Felix.
Good evening, Pastor Rodney, and all the panelists in studio and those on Zoom, and of course to all the listeners. Of course, I'm dressed to represent my dear mentor and teacher, Miss Lloyd. If she had to receive this award tonight and come in person, she would have dressed in her warp, which we all know she promoted so well. And every Dominican woman is very proud to be wearing the warp. So I'm wearing it for my dear teacher tonight.
Well, wonderful.
And as you said, your wife, and she taught history. Miss Lloyd taught her history. Yes, Miss Lloyd was an avid teacher of West Indian history, and she was a very patient teacher. Well, I grew up at Kings Hill together with Miss Lloyd's family, so her family was a neighbor and family friend to my family. But she became more than that to me. She became my teacher, my mentor, my spiritual director, to some degree, my counselor, and so much more. Growing up or attending to St. Martin's School, where she taught me, I attended the vocational section, which is now the secondary school, and I would go to Miss Lloyd's home and wait on her, and go to school together, with her, no matter what time she left. The two of us, one of her weakness, was punctuality. But I would wait on Miss Lloyd every time, but when she take off down the road, then I would be skipping, to catch up with her. But as her student, she was. She did not see me as a neighbor and a family friend. She saw me as a student, and as was mentioned by Mr. G, she groomed her students. I grew up to grow and glow under the guidance of Miss Lloyd. And one of the lessons I remember, I will never forget at school. She, as the students on a Friday, we wore, in fact, regularly, shoes and socks was part of our uniform. But on a Friday, some girls got fed up with the shoes and socks. And one Friday, I decided I was going to do that too and wear slippers and put a plaster on my toe. And as I approached, Miss Lloyd did this to me using her index finger and point me. Well, I know immediately I was caught, in the act. And she said, "You don't have any bobo on your toe." I felt so embarrassed. I never, ever tried that again. And it was a lesson of honesty and integrity that I learned. And if there's anything I will remember about her, is that, of course, the cultural aspect. I saw Miss Lloyd. I would stay at school with her late hours, and she would do her composing, always composing. She'd be composing at home. She'd be talking about her composing of her songs everywhere. She would get her inspiration, late in the evening or on Saturday. I was just going to two of my sisters. She's godmother to two of my sisters, but I tell you, I feel like the one that was her goddaughter. And I learned so much under her. And as I said, the grooming, I grew up to be the fine young lady that I am because Miss Lloyd contributed to me. I heard some of the panelists before me talk about camps and youth groups. And I recall she led St. Martin Primary School to many a victory in a cultural song competition. You know, as a little girl participating, I wasn't a very good singer, but I learned, you know, with Miss Lloyd, and she embraced all her students, whether you could sing or not, whether you were smart or not. And talking about her virtuous lifestyle, she practiced what she preached until the very end. She loved the Lord, and she also loved the mother of the Lord as well. And I am very thankful that Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd and family have asked me to represent her this evening. And as I said, I'm very proud to be wearing this robe for my dear teacher and mentor.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much, Nurse Felix. My friend, Mr. Arundel Thomas.
Not Mr. Arundel, the man from Lakusetland.
The man from Lakusetland. Okay.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, our panelists here on Facebook and everywhere else. I'm actually delighted to be here. You know, Sonia Lloyd was a school friend of my sisters. They attended the St. Martin School, the non-school together, and so on. And I think Sonia's talent emanated, and her flair for native culture and so on, emanated from a strong grounding in family and in community. I think she came from the Charlottesville area, where the music of the accordion, the music of the tambour, the music of the boom boom and the shak shak and the siyak, all that fill the air with sweet rhythmic melody and on festive occasions, at Easter time, Christmas, during La Saint Pierre. That was all around us in the Charlottesville, Newtown, Kingshill area. And the fishermen and farmers, the adults, all spoke the native language with clarity, and that's patois, with clarity and enthusiasm. That was the language of the area. People played their mass in Madras and Wogbier. I remember the gentleman from Loubier, Michel Guy, who used to dress in the native clothes, and his wife, Ma Michel, they used to go to the market dressed like exactly as the nurses dressed here. And the man had all his rings and earrings, and he dressed in native clothes. The duet and the sensei. Rupert Lloyd was an uncle, right? He was an absolutely creative and accomplished artisan. And the Charlottesville community was an entire center of carnival. A lot of the songs we hear, the Creole songs like Jose Lapla Puno Ale, Lemwe Mo. I don't know if anybody remembers those songs. And Harry, they used to compose songs. If you see during carnival time, all the secret exploits of the committee members were exposed by Newtown people singing songs at bandweed and all of that. And there was a potent appreciation for native culture. Hence, it is no surprise to me that growing up in the midst of all of that overwhelming artistic creativity, a Sonia Lloyd would develop the proclivity and the passion for the Creole song, Creole speech, native, wop duet, and the dressing of the matador. So I'm saying all that to create a context in which I knew Sonia could develop into what she became. And our families were close because at Kingshill, we were among the first persons to move to the Kingshill area from Newtown, Citronnier, and some people from Roseau. And we lived on the upper slope of Kingshill, and Sonia lived just below us. Mr. Norways and man also compares with my parents, my Ruby. We were sort of one family. So, now, here's a part of Sonia's life experiences where I was involved that people probably do not know. After we moved to Kingshill, Sonia, Festus, myself, and some other progressive young persons, we formed the Kingshill Youth Group.
Okay. And
Sonia was an active, involved person in that. We kept meetings. Our meetings were formal. We had minutes. You had to do things in an orderly and proper manner. Sonia was part of the executive. And so we brought out all our young community people together. We organized the the community clean activities, campaigns, with Sonia and all the rest of us together. And with the active leadership of Sonia, we organized concerts and so the other such activities at Kingshill. Now, these concerts were huge community events. And we had played some Shakespeare, and we performed local songs. Those were held at what we called the Shed. The Shed was probably the storage room for the experimental station. Then it looked like a huge hall, but things that looked big then were very small, and look very small now. And Sonia organized plays, concerts. We had drama, we had singing, and it was part of the whole dynamism of a creative instinct. And we were all part of that. These shows were amazing. They were fully supported by the community. We put an extra, as I said, of plays from Shakespeare, and we sang local songs. And Sonia's contribution to these events, as I remember them, these cultural events, her contribution was significant. And I still see her now singing and dancing and leading on the small stage and leading us in these community concerts. The proportion to the national grid, the cultural grid, came as no surprise to me. She seemed born for such great things. And there are no words that can capture her unqualified passion for Dominican Creole music, the wop duet, native dance. She sang and danced with unequaled, intimate devotion to the cultural heritage. And it is indeed a wonderful feeling to be associated with this celebration, though posthumously, of such a dedicated, patriotic Dominican to the core. So I want to compliment the Q people, the Q committee, for making this memorable event a reality. And this is especially significant as we celebrate the 44th year of our political independence. So that is Sonia I knew, a community person and a great artistic, creative individual.
Thank you very much, my friend. And that kind of transitions us right into Gregory's perspective on Sonia. Gregory's maybe largely a culture man here tonight. Good night, Gregory.
Bien bonsoir, monsieur. Good night. Well, my sort of knowledge about Sonia is really in the context of the work in Creole, in terms of the Comité Poétique Creole. Of course, being born and raised on the other side of the island at Kingston, I was nowhere close to the action in terms of her upbringing and her stints at the St. Martin's School and all of that.
Right.
In fact, Arundel and myself taught together at PSS, at the post of secondary school.
All right.
Yeah, so we go back a long way in that sense.
Over 50 years.
And the literary sort of things that we used to do at PSS. And so all that time we were doing our stuff at PSS. Sonia was doing her stuff at the St. Martin's School.
Yes, and you
yeah, so really there are two sort of perspectives I would like to share, both of them related to the Creole culture and language, generally speaking. In terms of CEC, Comité Poétique Creole, which is a translation of the Committee for Creole Studies, was formed in June 1981. Sonia Lloyd was a founding member of CEC, and in the early years, CEC launched some major initiatives in Dominica, and one of the landmark initiatives that CEC had launched, initiated, was the question of Journée Creole.
Okay.
And Journée Creole, the first Journée Creole was held in October 1981. And today we are seeing the results of that early effort, the impact of Journée Creole and so on. In the early years of Journée Creole, St. Martin's School was always one of the schools that was the most involved in the question of Journée Creole. Back in those days, the whole idea was to speak Creole Creole language on that day. So all classes, all lessons were delivered in the Creole language on the radio station. Well, DBS was the only radio station at the time in Dominica. All programming, news and announcements, everything, all that was done in Creole. And then the schools now had what they call Creole assemblies, and it was just a big Creole fete on that Creole Day. And the St. Martin's School was one of the schools that was probably the most distinguished. I think I have a photo of an assembly in St. Martin's School going way back in the 80s. And well, obviously, because of Sonia Lloyd's presence as a teacher in the St. Martin's School, so that would have served her involvement to put St. Martin's School right on top of the sort of schools in Dominica that celebrate. I think the other school that was probably on par with St. Martin was the convent. But back in the day, St. Martin was really up and really good. So that's one aspect of her involvement in the Creole in terms of getting the St. Martin's School involved. The second aspect of her involvement in the Creole language and through Keck was her work in the Creole dictionary. Sonia, obviously, because of her upbringing, she knew the Creole language very, very well. And that reflected in the work that we did on the first compilation of dictionary and the new dictionary that we have been working on for a few years now. And Sonia was one of the members of a special committee we had set up at Keck to work on the dictionary. Basically, that committee comprised like people like me, Sonia Akpa, Sonia Lloyd, Arlington James. Our role was to actually compile and expand on the lists, the initial list that was published in the first edition of the Creole Dictionary in the early 90s. Yeah, and Sonia was a very important resource person for us on the committee as well. So when we really have a challenge with a word, the meaning and so on, say, let's check Sonia, and then Sonia also, I think back then, I think her mom was still alive as well. And she would, even if she didn't have it, she didn't know, but she'd bunk it off her mom,
yes.
And get that kind of thing. So Sonia was the one who helped us resolve some word challenges in Creole when we were doing the compilation of the dictionary. Okay. So she was a very important resource person in that, based on her knowledge of the vocabulary of the Creole language. And the other aspect of Sonia, as relates to the language, is through her music. I mean, we talked about the recordings that she made, but an important aspect of that is the lyrical content of the songs that she wrote. And I think Arundel probably somebody he spoke about the album.
I think that's getting shared.
Right. So now the lyrical content of those songs, very, very powerful. Yeah. And she left a very important, you might say, music legacy for us. Every time we, at Independence Time, when we celebrate Miss Wop Duet or T Matador, when we have the Creole Dress Parade, Sonia's songs, these are what you might say, the anthems. Anytime you're really having a celebratory of the Creole dress, the Creole fashion, Sonia's songs are the anthems for those things, the literal road march for those things. So this is what I would like to share initially at this point in time, and so we can have other commentators.
Every time, Mr. G, every time I get to do these programs, I feel like I sit in a new school, learning some stuff that I never heard before. So quite frankly, Gregory, I'm really appreciative of some of the things you shared tonight. I really didn't know that Sonia was so active in Keck. Right,
very much so.
I had no idea about that, and the fact that you're emphasizing tonight that she was so strong in Creole is something that Dominicans now need to listen to, because if I heard Arundel right, Sonia was part of where was she brought up?
The youth group, Charlottesville.
She lived in Kingsville, yeah, but she was living in Charlottesville.
We moved originally. The house we moved. We were the first person to move from Charlottesville to Kingsville.
Yeah, but you see, the point I'm making is that very often when we talk Creole, I'm sure the next person I'll ask to talk about that tonight, is Wadix. Very often we think of some villages out of Roseau.
No, Roseau was patois was
Yeah,
our language.
but you get the point I'm making, eh?
Yes.
So it's instructive to know that she's been part of Keck coming out of Pottersville. This is Charlottesville. Sorry, and that is very
That was the
very.
patois,
That's the patois area of that.
of Dominica. Well, all over Dominica.
Well, I mean, I recall my very first trip to Roseau as a little boy. Staying with the seniors, the former president. Little boy coming to Roseau and so on. And Roseau was just really a Creole capital. I mean, you hear, I learned and memorized all the colors of the fish vendors, beaucoup de fruits, macri and all that nuances of that. So that was an important experience for me. But recognize that in those days, Roseau was intensely
Don't forget
Creole
into the language.
Okay.
The Creole language.
Right.
Of course, over time, dynamics change and even certain accents change. Right now, in the urban area, we get people saying taboo instead of tambu. So there's a nasal, there's a nasalization that is happening. People say, for example, they say la pointe, but sometimes maybe say la pointe. And even write it like that, as a matter of fact, which takes us to the Creole writing system. So you find that over time, especially in the urban area, there's certain dynamics in terms of the sounds.
Maybe they try to make
Creole.
it sound nice, Gregory.
Well, I maybe, but it really sounds, to me, it sounds. It really
doesn't sound patois.
It sounds bad Creole.
I understand that totally.
It sounds bad.
I understand that totally.
But that is a dynamic that's happening, especially in the urban area.
Okay.
The use of the nasals and flattening of the nasal sounds.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I love to be at school when it comes to that. Ladies and gentlemen, the other person who've just walked in here tonight, and no stranger, member of the Kudos for Heroes Committee, is Leroy Wadix Charles. I thought he went to sleep today and he wouldn't get up for the program tonight. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Pastor, and good evening to all those listening and viewing via the Big Station Facebook page. I am very fortunate to have raised up in the 70s. And I'm saying fortunate because those were the days when folk music was extremely popular. And very important is doing this special ceremony basically on the eve of independence.
Right.
I remember, like Gregory said a while ago, there was only one radio station, but you would have listened to the entire Siffle Mutai chorale repertoire, La Jeune Étoile chorale from Grand Bay repertoire. Folk music, theater was a big thing. Ophelia, Sonia. To me, those two female cultural icons really stood out. And by the way, she sent a love. She's still in Cayenne, should be back on Norwich on Wednesday. That's Ophelia, that is. She would have liked to contribute when I told her about the program tonight. But these two, really stood out in terms of folk music, their vocal variations. And musically, when you dig deep into Sonia's thought process in creating the song she did, this is patriotism by excellence. And this is, I dwell on that aspect of the discussion because it's a deficiency those days. People expressed their love for their country, their undying love for their country. And like you heard from Gregory and Arundel, in a language which belonged to the people. And sadly, during this independence, it is a very funny, and I must say, I want to choose my words carefully. I must say I am overwhelmed with sadness at the stage of the Creole language and culture. The work that these people like Sonia did and the legacy they left for us, I am wondering what our generation is doing to continue. I am wondering what are we doing to teach our children and our grandchildren to continue the work that we heard Gregory and them spoke about, the getting the dictionary together. Soon they will be gone. We all will be gone. But what happened to the language that was, given to us by our forefathers? Sonia's music, when you listen to the music and the melody, especially when she did the raid, she had some early recordings, Greg's, and then she remixed it at Moving Studio. That's when Moving had the studio just around by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It was Moving Dells, all that is. I'm not sure it was a cultural division project. But then the remix to include a little at the time, a nice little bouillon fusion with a new repertoire, a new remix. But not so much the music, it is the melody and the lyrical content about this lady. She was truly special and cool. So there was always cool, everything was always all right. I wonder if Sonia ever felt like she wasn't all right. Whenever you saw Sonia, she would always be cool. And I'm worried, extremely worried. We have a cultural icon next to me that during our independence, when I know we celebrate, or we're supposed to be celebrating and highlighting what belongs to us, we have been deviating. There is a reason for the season. The works of Sissy Kodera, even the politicization of the Creole into our culture and to expose it by Iwo Libla. Then come the whole Kadaslipso era, where the Creole music was, and the culture was very prevalent. The folk aspect. As children, we were exposed to all kinds of music. Spooge, reggae, ska, you name it. But folk music resonated with us.
Let me interrupt you there, because from the time Gregory spoke, I have a thought, and I'm going to throw it in the lap of you and Gregory tonight, and anybody else who's listening in that regard, because I want to keep the focus on Sonia tonight, but I want to throw that in your lap. I am concerned about the Creole language, or the patois language, and put it that way in Dominica. I'm concerned about what is Dominican. And I really think that probably we should have a conversation about that one of those days in the public. I began a conversation with you while walking some time ago in that regard. I think we have to go back to that. We have to go back to teaching people the language. And I'm glad that Gregory made mention of some new innovations, if you like. He calls it a nasal modification of the language. I think it's trying to make it sound British. Anglicize it. Thank you very much for that. And so I think we need to go back there. We need to look at some of the language in its form and deal with that. And I'm sure we can take that up in another area. Let me just give you a taste of that, ladies and gentlemen, and then I will go to Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd in just a while, who's Sonia's sister, and I'll get some comments from my friend Sobers. But let me just tell you, all of you listening, that tonight we're honoring Sonia Lloyd, and this is she right there.
La politique, why ça mauvais? Papa le compte économique, why ça mauvais? Et le quartier, West Lachille, la vie de toujours à dominer. Sankari, la vérité, Sankari, la vie est toujours à dominer. Sonia sans élection, sans mauvais. Papa le compte disait, oui, pignon, ouais, sans mauvais. Mais le quartier, West Lachille, la vie de toujours à dominer. Sankari, la vérité, Sankari, la vie est toujours à dominer.
I guess that goes in line with one of the things that we heard Mr. G said, that Sonia just wanted to be here. Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd, you are with us tonight on the panel. A very good evening to you. Would you please unmute your mic now? Good.
Yes. Hi. Good evening to all. And on the panel, I thank you so much for being part of this experience, and most importantly, for honoring Sonia, my sister. There is so much to be said. And I thought an angle that I would approach Sonia is probably a private part of her that people don't know, what it was like growing up as Sonia's sister. And Sonia being the 9th child, and I'm the 12th child.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I'm the last. So certainly I was Sonia's baby. Our oldest sister, our eldest, Veronica John Lewis, Patsy, she's 86 years old, and she's here in the US with us. So many of the things that you said are very accurate. Point of correction, I do not know if when you talked about Charlottesville, if that includes Kings Hill, because we have always lived in Kings Hill, the lower part of Kings Hill and then the upper part of Kings Hill. But so we say what do you say? How do they say the Savan? Le côté savane là, nous te ka leve côté savane, leve nous moute upper Kings Hill. Because nous say Ja Savan. Because so we always live there. Now, Sonia, my goodness, so many, again, you said something about how she should always go to my mom as a source of reference. And that is so accurate because my mom was a laborer. She worked very hard in Kings Hill. In Reggit, she worked very hard. My dad was a foreman at the banana industry. And my mom spoke total Creole. My mother spoke very little English. And my dad was a lot more fluent in English. So therefore he spoke English, and as you know, back then, being the nature of the culture and the European influence or the British influence, we were discouraged from speaking Patois. As a matter of fact, Patois was relegated to what they call for country bookies. And that was kind of the classism that existed at that time. You did not speak Patois. If you lived in Roseau, you speak English. So therefore, Sonia, so my mother always spoke Patois to us, but it was also a sign of disrespect to respond to her back in Patois. So therefore, we always responded in English. And if we were ever caught speaking Patois to a boy, we would get into trouble, get a slap for doing that, because that was the ultimate disrespect. So therefore, Sonia was always very busy, very, very busy. Sonia was basically just never home. As long as I can remember as a child. And I was always towing behind her. She was always dragging me wherever she went, I went, because by that time, Sonia was involved in every conceivable activity there was in school. I remember Sonia directing concerts. We were constantly doing concerts in St. Gerald's Hall, and she was always the director of Christmas concerts, summer concerts, whatever there was a concert, the nun depended on her. Believe it or not, though we all ended up here in the United States, like with the exception of my brother, Maxwell, Sonia was actually the very first one that my eldest sister, Patsy, the one who's 86, she's the one who sent for all of us. And if you know the tradition, you know this one sibling goes and they send for the other, as it's typical in immigrant families. So Sonia, Patsy started the paperwork for Sonia, and waited. Maybe 1 or 2 years passed, and the paperwork wasn't moving. And finally, we discovered, the short end of the story, we discovered that basically the nuns had convinced Sonia that there was no value to her to come to America. And if she came to America, she would only be a servant to people. She would never be able to teach again. She would never have a career in her life. She would only end up being a domestic servant. And look all the things that she's doing. So therefore, Sonia, and back then we always went to the people who, quote unquote, were more educated to help us complete the immigration paper. So immediately my sister turned her attention to my other sister, Virginia. And then right after Virginia came to the United States, then I followed. So I left Dominica at 15. But during that time, Sonia was a strong influence on my life. And when you're a child and you're growing up, you're usually not necessarily thinking about how your sibling is impacting you or how your family system is impacting you. But so much in retrospect, when I look at myself today, I see that how much of a strong influence Sonia had. And Sonia had quite a sense of humor. Sometimes it was dry, but she was always very, very funny. Some of the things that stands out for me about my sister Sonia, always had proper manners. And of course, if you grew up with Sister Borgia, you had proper manners. And Sonia she always ate all her meals with knife and fork. That dashing and that fig on that long fig and dashing on that plate. She had her knife and fork to cut that long fig and that piece of dashing and yam pear that would be on her plate. She ate with a knife and fork all her life. It didn't matter what she was eating, a knife and fork. So she had this very proper sense. Her involvement in school was beyond compare. I remember coming home after my first 7 years here in this country, and the plane no longer landed, and there was some huge fear going on in St. Martin's School. And she goes, "Come on, let's go." And she dragged me down Kings Hill. Now, after being in America for 7 years and with a lot of light, and coming back to Kings Hill with no lights, and you could barely see where to put your foot and all the craters in the road. I remember by the time I got to St. Martin's School, my shoes was just, as I was in Patois, décalé. Those big holes in the Kings Hill Road just tore my shoes up. But it was so much fun. It was so much, again, the kind of things that Sonia did. She was always on the go. And what else can I say about my sister? She was very much a humble servant, very, very much. And she certainly influenced us quite a bit. Sonia never said no. You talk about the Legion of Mary. I so much remember the Legion of Mary. She was so active in the Legion of Mary that I joined. Whenever she joined, I joined. Wherever she went, I went. She was also very, again, some of the things that she did. Sonia loved hiking. She always, at the end of the school year, all the teachers, they would go hiking. They would hike all the mountains. Sonia have climbed every mountain there is in Dominica, because they would go camping. They would go, from the time school ended to a good 3 or 4 weeks up in the mountain. They would go hiking for almost like 3 or 4 to 5 weeks. They would be gone. So she was a very active, very, very active person. Her songs, she always told me about her songs, and she always talked to me about the importance of transferring the culture. And she was always worried about what was happening to people. She was always worried that the young people today that they could not speak Patois. She was very disturbed about the fact that we were losing our language for many, many reasons that we can think about. What else can I say about my sister? We loved her dearly. She finally, by the time she retired, we used to try to get her to come. But after a while, I quickly realized that, like many people in their advanced age and careers, that America is not for everybody, that God knew Sonia's path and created it. And Sonia never wanted to come and live in America. She would come and spend, a couple of months with us. And at a certain time, she just wanted to go back. And we stopped encouraging her to move here, because we realized that home was where she belonged. And that was where she got to be herself and to share her culture and to share her talents and to share her gifts. So we quickly realized that coming to America, to live in America, is not for her. And that's where she belonged, and that's where she wanted to die. And that's where she died peacefully.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gwyneth, for sharing that. It's already 18 minutes moving up to 8 o'clock, and we have not gone to 50% of what we need to do. We need to hurry up a little bit. I'm going to introduce to you my friend Sobers Esprit, and he's going to be brief, but share a few thoughts with us on Sonia, and then we'll come right back with some tributes. Good evening, Sobers.
Yeah, good evening, Pastor. Yeah, so thank you very much. Kudos committee. Tremendous job. I actually followed the last Kudos for Heroes session you had on Brian Allen, and I was so stimulated and moved by that. So when I was asked to participate in this evening's discussion, it was easy for me to agree. Although I must confess, though, that unlike many of the other guys on the panel and girls on the panel, I am not as intimately connected to the work of Sonia Lloyd or knew her that close. However, I will speak from the perspective of a cultural worker, a cultural administrator in Dominica for the last 40 or so years, and to add my perspective and my views on some of those issues that have been raised here. So I want to congratulate the committee again and to express a special congratulations to the family of Sonia Lloyd for her life and her contribution to Dominica's cultural development. I think there are four central things that we need to look at in moving forward. One is obviously the fact that, and I think Sheridan said it in his presentation, his opening remarks, that Sonia helped to broaden the content of the cultural discourse, and I would say artistic development as well. So she was a major part of that period in adding value to the culture and to the discourse, because I think what we are doing tonight is, in fact, an extension of that cultural discourse that is so critical for us if we want greater self-actualization as a nation and to build a nation of people with integrity, with a sense of proudness, but also a sense of confidence, because any developing nation requires that as a key element of moving forward. So that's the first thing I think we should highlight, her contribution to the broadening of the content. The second thing is her cultural activism. We all lament the fact that these things don't happen in Dominica, that's not happening. We're speaking of Creole, the music is dying, and all those things. You know why? Part of the problem is because, folks, we're not doing the work that people like Sonia used to do. Not enough of us out there in the schools, in the communities, doing the kind of activism that people like Sonia, and of course, I dare say we have a few folks here who have been doing that, but I think we did more. My good friend Arundel and Gregory, who I still work with, we were all members of the Writers Guild, but we need to continue that. So that's the second thing. So she was a strong cultural activism. That's the second point. The third point I want to raise is that people like Sonia, through innovation and through creativity, they were able to utilize the large body of work that was done before them to help in the preservation, in the promotion of Dominica's art and culture. I want to say that again, that through innovation, through new techniques, new method, new approaches, because Sonia wasn't like those before her. She was different. She came with a new kind of energy. And they helped to contribute to the collection, the preservation, and the promotion of Dominica's artistic and heritage culture, which is so important. And Wadix made the point that, and she did that through the folk element of the culture. She was a great folklorist. And we had others before her and possibly after that, but I think she was probably one of the greatest exponents of the arts, of the folk culture of Dominica during her time. And the last point I want to make is that the craft, Gregory spoke about it. In every cultural endeavor, folks, there has to be a greater accent on how we develop the craft. how we improve on what went before us. And people like Sonia demonstrated that through hard work, through the tenacity. They constantly worked on the craft, and they made sure that whatever came out from them was of a higher quality, of a higher standard. And I think that is part of the struggles that we are faced with today, that we are not seeing that same level of devotion, of commitment to craft. Today, in artistic and cultural work in Dominica, for the most part, we very ordinary. You know, people spend very little time to address issues of craft, whether it be whether you play the music, or you write songs, or you produce, or whatever it is. So a key element is, in fact, improving the craft. And Sonia, Lloyd, and what I talk about Ophelia, and people of that generation, and people during that time, they put a lot of emphasis on craft. Okay, so here's the thing. I think that the lessons that we need to learn from her life and her experience and her contribution is that we need to research her work. We need to look at her legacy as a vehicle for inspiring this and future generation of not just folklorists, but of cultural and artistic development in Dominica. That those of us, generation gone, but particularly the younger generation, need to use people like Sonia Lloyd as stimulation, as inspiration, as motivation for building on that work and for creating a greater aesthetics in Dominica's art and cultural sphere. I want to end by saying that one of the things I believe that we need to do in moving forward is we have to create institutions, folks. The way we used to develop arts and culture or sports in Dominica 30 years ago, 40 years ago, is very different today than it was back then. Before, people were much more self-motivated. We had leadership at the community level, at the school level. So we had people like Sonia who volunteered at the time. And they were able to spread knowledge, and we saw the connection between one generation to the next. Today, the situation is different. It's vastly different. So I suggest, and I greatly recommend that part of moving forward, because we're talking about things like language development, or folklore, development of the folk culture, and music, and theater, and those things. In order for us to address the deficiency, the gaps that we see currently existing today, we've got to create new institutions and new modes of production, of cultural and artistic production.
Okay.
So I would say one of the things that I would want to recommend, I probably will be leaving you guys by 8 o'clock, is that some effort, some attempt should be made to create a center to perpetuate the work of Sonia Lloyd and people like Sonia. So it could be a center dedicated, entirely to the advancement of folklore, and in that case, songwriting or folk singing, folk songs. So people like, we can research the work of Sissy Cordera, Sonia Lloyd, and Ophelia, even if Ophelia is more in the popular realm of things. But I believe that that is the kind of thing that we should be doing as Dominicans. And that is where we can bring in the diaspora community, both of those of us here and the diaspora, to create those institutions, to perpetuate those kind of work, and to help in instilling a new sense of pride, ownership, and of course, excellence going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sobers. Thank you very much. And I'm sure we will be able to take that on board somewhere and do some work about that. Let's take a pause, ladies and gentlemen, and let's listen to some tributes from those who have sent those on behalf of Sonia. We'll first start with people who have been close to her in terms of her family. So the first one out here is Cecilia Cook, and then we'll listen to another 3 or so of them, and then we will branch out to those who work with Sonia during her stint at St. Martin's School.
My name is Cecilia Cook, and Sonia was my godmother, a role she took very seriously. I have an abundance of beautiful memories of her, happy ones, funny ones, and a few sad ones. Above all, I will always remember she never missed an opportunity to show or tell me how much she loved me. I loved her dearly as well. I recall that as a child, when she was ill, I longed to go home from school so I could spend time with her in the afternoons. She always told me how much she enjoyed my company, and we spent quite a bit of time together. She often corrected my grammar then, as she reminded me of the importance of speaking properly. I never could sing, and the few times I did try aloud in her presence, she would laugh a deep, hearty laugh and remind me that singing was not my strong suit. In every aspect of my life, she was a positive influence and a great motivator, and reminded me that I could accomplish anything I desired. When I lived at home, we went to Mass together at the cathedral every Sunday, but there was one problem. My nenen was always late. Every Sunday, I would call her from the road, and she would always respond that she was coming. But I had to wait another 5 to 10 minutes before she showed up, sweating, breathless, and laughing, confessing sometimes that when I called, she had just come from the shower but did not want to miss the ride. Once she entered the vehicle, she would say, "Thank you, my Sisi," as she always called me fondly. I was proud of her cultural contribution to Dominica, and I had the pleasure of accompanying her to quite a few cultural events, including the occasion she received the Golden Drum Award. When her songs were being sung on the radio, I would share with everyone that was my nenen singing. It really broke my heart when she stopped participating in the Creole song competitions. After badgering her a few times as to why she stopped, she revealed that after her last success, another competitor told her, rather unkindly I suspected, she needed to step down to give someone else a chance. Being the selfless person that she was, she decided to never compete again, being content to perform whenever she was asked to do so. The last time I spoke with my Nan, as I called her once I became an adult, was at the end of June when my son went to visit her. She had just been recently discharged from the hospital and her speech was a bit slurred. I prayed with her and told her how much I loved her. I told her I knew that if she was able, she would tell me she loved me too. I could tell it took a lot from her, but she responded clearly enough to be understood. "I love you too, my Sissy. Rest in peace, my Nan. You will always be with me."
My name is Wendy Ostry. I am one of the many nieces of Sonia Lloyd. My mother is her older sister. One of the things that I remember most about Auntie Sonia is that she always brought me books to read when I was a little girl. And they weren't just books that you could find at the library. I don't know whether she bought them, but they were really interesting books about, people from different countries, animals. I remember one book in particular where it was basically something about a bunch of billy goats, but I can actually picture the book now because it's so very vivid in my mind. I think that this is one of the things that sparked my creativity and my passion for writing poetry, short stories, and even songs. I remember Auntie Sonia always singing, especially when she was in the kitchen, and she used to write the entire song on paper. I can picture her handwriting now. She had several notebooks full of songs, and I don't know whether those were songs that she had written herself because I didn't know that she was artistic that way. All I knew is that she was a good singer. But in any case, I just remember tons and tons of notebooks with songs. My sisters and I, we used to mimic her because we also started listening to the radio and writing down the words to the songs that we liked. I'll always be thankful for that gift and will remember Auntie Sonia fondly forever.
Hello, my name is Karumi Stevens, and I'm Sonia Lloyd's niece based in New York. Growing up, I have too many good memories to count with Auntie Sonia. Every year, she would come to the U.S. to stay with my family for several months. I remember being a little girl and very excited about her arrival, going to pick her up at the airport and having some gummy bears, which were one of her favorite candy treats for her sweet tooth upon her arrival. When she would arrive, we would share a room, and every night was like a sleepover. I would do dance shows and talent shows for her and read the new children's chapter books from school with her. She would listen to all my little 7-year-old talk and rants and go on and on and on, like it was the most interesting thing in the world. When she was in the US, she always taught me some of her patois and Creole, how to play the recorder, and always helped me with my homework, even when I didn't want help or didn't want to redo it because I didn't write neatly enough. On Sundays, Auntie Sonia always found some way to a Catholic church to spend time with God. I remember her sitting on the couch doing her prayers while I played with my toys as a little girl. Every memory with Auntie Sonia is a fond one. Coming to Dominica this August for her funeral really reminded me and showed me how much people love her, and just as much as I love her. Seeing her passing get over 15,000 views and likes on Facebook really reminded me how much she touched others' lives. And I'm so grateful to have known her and to spend time with her and to love her. To know Auntie Sonia was to love her. And I'm grateful to have called her my auntie.
Hello, my name is Olivia Stevens, and I am the niece of Sonia Lloyd. I am currently living in New York, but as Auntie Sonia taught me, my heart will always remain in Dominica. Growing up, Auntie Sonia was my connection to my heritage, my culture, and the land where my mother came from. Every time I spoke with her, she would speak with me sweetly in patois. She would teach me things and tell me about where she grew up and the stories of her childhood. Auntie Sonia was the sweetest lady I ever knew. She always had kind words. She was an educator who not only educated in the classrooms, but beyond it, in every moment she had with anyone who would take the time. Auntie Sonia was a God-fearing woman who spent countless hours praying on her rosary and praying with us. Auntie Sonia was love. And no matter what it was, she was always there to help. I have childhood friends from when I was a kid who remember Auntie Sonia and how much she loved and cared for all of us, because it wasn't just the family she took care of, but anyone who needed it. As we got older and grew in ourselves, it was always so warming to hear Auntie Sonia speak with us on the phone and again keep us connected. As though she's gone now, I know that she will continue to be that connection to a land, a country, and a culture that I have loved because of her.
Dominique, c'est Beliano. C'est là nous fêtes, c'est là nous lever, c'est là nous voudrait jouer. Tous les jours qui t'es qu'à tout mettre plus à tes mauvais. Dominique, pour pas qu'on se fait, nous n'a écrit. La vie nous c'est ça, Dominique, tout ça nous c'est ça. La vie nous, j'ai à nous, tout c'est ça. La vie nous c'est ça, Dominique, tout ça nous c'est ça. La vie nous, j'ai à nous, la vie nous, talent nous, tout c'est ça.
At a minute past 8 o'clock on a Monday evening, the 31st day of October, we're honoring Sonia Lloyd. I'm grateful to all of you who've tuned in listening to us this evening. We're going to transition a little bit and we're going to hear from some of the people who taught with Sonia. All of us are familiar with that one now. All right, we'll get a little bit more of that. I hope we get some time more to do a little bit more of that. But let's transition into some of the people who taught with Sonia at St. Martin's School, and we're going to start with Amanda first.
Amanda Charles, Secretary of St. Martin's Secondary School from 1990 to present, and I have known Miss Sonia Lloyd since. A God-fearing soul, a kind soul, a gentle soul. Whenever she returned from her travels, she always had a gift for Miss Charles. After I had my son, she included him on her list of persons she gifted. Always willing to help everyone. As a colleague, she was my go-to person if the office needed to write a recommendation for a past student. After Hurricane David, most records were destroyed, but Miss Lloyd would know every student who had passed through vocational. She would help the office complete that recommendation. Even after her retirement, she was a frequent visitor at school. She especially enjoyed looking at the little ones of her former colleagues play together on the schoolyard. Now is her time, independence season. She embraced every aspect of our independence and contributed with her wonderful and patriotic renditions. I miss her. I will always miss her. I can say so many things about Miss Lloyd. How generous she was, how calm and collected she was. I have never seen her angry in all the years I have known her. As a teacher at school, she was so good with the students and with her colleagues alike. I miss her advice, her motherly advice. I miss her laugh, her little jokes, out of the blue jokes she would make just to have us laughing. May you rest in peace, Miss Lloyd. Sleep in peace.
I am Andrew Christian, former principal of St. Martin's Secondary School. Miss Sonia Lloyd taught at St. Martin's School from 1966 to 2010 when she retired. I met Miss Lloyd at the school, and she became a main go-to person on matters of school history, ethos, and culture. She was also the Creole expert on staff and willingly offered help with translations, pronunciations, and the school Creole spelling bee. She wanted familiarity with the Creole language and national wear well spread. Miss Lloyd was a prayerful woman of great faith. Religious education was among the subjects she taught, and over the years, she interacted with almost every student. Her impact on the young ladies in the cognitive and affective domains of their lives was visible. She recognized students needing special care and attention. And because of her generous nature, students can attest to receiving learning materials, an occasional meal, and sometimes temporary shelter. She also shared her little blessings, l'ordinaire as she referred to it, with the school for rewarding student success. Miss Lloyd was a cultural icon, long before that expression was popular. From an early age, she highlighted the good in her country and recommendations for change through English and Creole folk songs she composed and sang at every opportunity, especially National Day and later Independence celebrations. She enkindled love and patriotism in her students and shared her talents and skills through cultural song groups initiated at school. These choirs performed at school functions and also won multiple national Creole group song competitions. Even after retirement, Miss Lloyd passed by school regularly, assisted in preparing groups for independence competitions, and could whip up a composition in quick time for a special school occasion. One of her special joys was assistance from the Cultural Division for the production of a compact disc of some of her folk songs. Miss Lloyd was always composing. To this day, her popular hits are staples on the airwaves and at independence pageants. Thanks for your contributions, Miss Lloyd. Kite Coltea Vive. Humility, prayer, generosity, sensitivity, and affirmation of others were hallmark characteristics of Miss Lloyd. I knew I was always in her prayers, so I didn't have to worry. Miss Sonia Lloyd was first an employee, then colleague in education, and finally a friend to the end.
My name is Joan Severin. I taught with Miss Sonia Lloyd at St. Martin's School from 1990 until her retirement in 2010. During that time, the school evolved from a vocational school to a technical vocational school and finally to a secondary school. She was a teacher who made learning fun for her students. Miss Lloyd was a no-nonsense teacher who believed that students should be disciplined at all times and show respect to teachers, other staff members, as well as to their peers. However, her classes were always interspersed with some form of comedy. Many times when we heard the class suddenly erupt with laughter, it was because Miss Lloyd had made a funny remark in Creole. If anyone needed a history lesson at the school, Miss Lloyd was the person to deliver it. She served under all four principals, from Sister Borgia to Mrs. Christian. She would relate very interesting stories about her service under Sister Borgia, often imitating her in a very comedic fashion. However, one could plainly see that she admired her as a strict disciplinarian. She loved and cared for her students in a motherly way and had an excellent rapport with staff and parents. I will always remember Miss Lloyd assisting me if I needed anything translated into Creole. She was my Creole dictionary. My Creole vocabulary expanded because of her. I can recall very clearly one year, I decided to set up an exhibition entitled Vite Longtemps in my first form class, where I displayed a variety of household utensils and tools used long ago. I went to her to ask her the names of a number of items, so she volunteered to write them down for me and admonished me to learn them for myself next time. Miss Lloyd lived for the Creole language, especially Creole song, and that is why she started the chorale with the girls, to whom she taught many of her renditions. And the group went on to participate in various cultural competitions in which they won prizes. Even after her retirement, she would pop in to perform one of the pieces at our Creole Day activities. She loved the school so much that she visited the school as long as she was in Dominica. Sometimes she spent the entire school day there, so that even the younger students whom she never taught knew her. The present students still enjoy singing her Creole songs or performing to them. She believed that the full wob duet or jip should be worn with pride. She did not readily appreciate the modification of the female national wear. She encouraged the girls to wear the complete jip or wob duet on Creole Day. Rest in peace, Miss Lloyd. You will never be forgotten at St. Martin's.
I am Vanessa Serafin, a teacher at St. Martin Secondary School. Miss Lloyd and I are from the same community. There, I simply knew of her, but it was through teaching at St. Martin Secondary that I really got to know her. As a teacher, a colleague, and a motivator, Miss Lloyd had a great impact on the students that she taught, as well as teachers. As a teacher, she taught with zeal and passion. She loved what she did and loved working with young children. She was dedicated and loyal. Miss Lloyd had a caring and nurturing spirit and was more than a teacher to many of her students. She wanted to see decent young ladies, and she would not hesitate to say child and let them know. And of course, she would throw in a little Creole here and there. She was always generous with her help and assisted students who needed it. When I began teaching, it was like she had taken me under her wings. She always motivated me to have a good work ethic and would emphasize my potential as a teacher. Anytime an opportunity to volunteer for some school-related activity came up or a workshop, she would always ask me, "What about that, Miss Seraphine?" I remember Miss Lloyd as one who would compliment me for the simplest of things that I did, and that was encouraging. As a teacher, it was harder to do anything that would disappoint her. The teachers would tell me that Miss Lloyd liked me, and yes, I believe she did. I remember after she retired and she traveled to the States for vacation, when she returned, she always brought stationery supplies and other personal items for us. She would tell me, "Choose what you want. First, a little preference," yes. I enjoyed the few years working with her. The interesting back in the day stories, the late evenings helping her correct papers during exam time, her Creole phrases that she often had to translate for me, her music and love for culture, her frequent visits to the school after she retired, her God-fearing personality, and so much more. But most of all, her simple, sweet, loving self. The memories of Miss Lloyd will surely live on.
I am Sister Lucy Alexander, co-worker and friend of Miss Sonia Lloyd. Miss Lloyd, as she was respectfully and affectionately called by all students, teachers, and parents, was admired for her generosity and goodness. She showed a genuine care for the safety and well-being of people, especially children and young people. She rescued, fed, and sheltered many young people who were in difficulty. She believed that they all deserved a second chance. Miss Sonia Lloyd was not only just compassionate and caring, but she had a knack for being able to see things from the perspective of others. When she encountered a situation where an individual was in need, she was immediately able to see herself in that same situation and see what needed to be done. Miss Lloyd had a strong moral compass. She lived by her values and was willing to endure personal risk to protect those values. She believed in generously sharing her gifts and talents, and she is well remembered for her significant positive contributions to the growth and development of the Dominican Creole culture. She brought the Creole culture to life through her compositions and stage performances. Miss Sonia Lloyd, a humble soul, placed all her confidence in God and would say that her blessings, her giftedness and graces, her comforts and pains were all in his hands. She was exceptionally discreet in her conduct and speech, especially with regard to respecting the privacy of others. Miss Lloyd had no hidden agendas or motives. She was simple, honest, and authentic. A gentle and kind-hearted person, very sympathetic and generous in spirit. Her total life demonstrated a woman of strong faith, a prayer warrior who lived on every word that came from the mouth of God.
What can you say about somebody who had such a major influence in your life? My name is Marja Stedman, but Miss Lloyd knew me as Marja Jeffers. I knew Miss Lloyd in the capacity of a teacher, as she taught me for my 5 years at the St. Martin Secondary School. I also had the pleasure of knowing Miss Lloyd as a community elder and a mentor, because I was born and raised in Kings Hill, and that's exactly where Miss Lloyd was. Funny story, she was actually 2 houses away from me, so she was almost like an immediate neighbor. Miss Lloyd was such an influential person in my life, and not just because she was a teacher, and not just because she was a mentor or a friend, but was because of the lessons that she gave. At school, she taught us religion, and maybe a lot of persons who did religion with Miss Lloyd and me would agree that that was the easiest test to pass. Because she never made it difficult to learn about God. She never made it difficult to understand how to be a good person, or to understand how to be a giving person, a forgiving person. And that was exactly what she was, a giving, forgiving person. We used to laugh a lot when we were in assembly, because Miss Lloyd was terrible with time. So she used to be like 2 minutes or 5 minutes late almost every day. But what a lot of people don't know, which I got to know because I lived in Kings Hill with Miss Lloyd, was she used to travel with half of her house. So we would be in assembly, and 5 minutes into assembly, we would see Miss Lloyd entering the gates with 4 or 5 bags. She carried everything. She carried her breakfast, her lunch, her snack, her water, her juice, and all of that. And I got the pleasure of sometimes being with her when she was packing up for her to get ready to come to school. Miss Lloyd could do anything for anyone if you asked her. Sometimes she wouldn't even wait for you to ask. She'd literally see someone and be like, it doesn't look like this person has lunch. And she would just come and, give you some of her cream of wheat, her oats, all of that. Miss Lloyd actually taught me how to make rice the way that I make it today. And my husband loves my rice because she made her rice very grainy. And that was, just observing her. I had the pleasure of spending time with Miss Lloyd outside of school. And that was really because at the point when she lived alone, I know what it's like to just be alone. And she liked to cook and the company of persons more than anything else, just the company. So a lot of times after class, after school, I would just visit her. We would just sit, we would just talk. And that's where I learned a lot about Miss Lloyd. It was sad to hear of Miss Lloyd's passing. It was hard to see Miss Lloyd go. But at the end of the day, the mark that she left on this world, the mark that she left on her students, the mark that she left on people, those marks can never be removed. I love Miss Sonia Lloyd. I appreciate everything she did in my life, and I'm going to try my best to leave a good mark in people's lives because of lessons that I learned from her. So Miss Lloyd, rest in peace. From all of us at St. Martin's School, from Marja, we love you.
C'est ça qui fait on pas nous que pas faire nous dit la foi nous pas qu'à faire espoir nous que pas faire nous que toi va personne te paye nous que pas faire annoncer cet esprit nous que pas faire nous a même ça étranger qu'elle déborde là yo avec Stella yo a Dominique nous que prospérer c'est ça qui fait moi qu'elle pas là nous que prospérer nous ni la foi nous pas qu'à faire espoir nous que prospérer nous que travail ouais personne te paye nous que prospérer annoncer cet esprit nous que prospérer
ni la foi nous pas qu'à perdre espoir mais nous qui prospérer. Honoring Sonia Lloyd, one of the Kudos for Q heroes. So those of you just joining us, that's what we're doing tonight. We heard from the teachers and those who work with Sonia at St. Martin's School. Then we'll hear from former Chief Cultural Officer Raymond Lawrence. And one more person tonight on some of our voice notes. And then we'll come back here to wrap it up momentarily. Good reminder, ladies and gentlemen, you might be going through some grind sometimes. You might be going through some rough times sometimes. But if you got faith, la foi et espoir, you will prosper. Let's turn to Raymond Lawrence now as he shares with us on Sonia Lloyd.
It saddened me deeply to have heard of the passing of Sonia Lloyd of Kings Hill. She was a true cultural icon and an outstanding folklorist and cultural personality. She had a great passion and love for Dominica's culture, especially folk music, our Creole language, and our Creole wear. I remember Sonia being involved in the Comité Poétique Creole KEC from its inception, and she was very much a part of all the research and gathering of information and the creation of Dominica's first Creole dictionary. So she was very instrumental in the process of developing this dictionary, and she sacrificed a lot of her time and energy towards that goal. Sonia was a great promoter of Dominica's Creole music. She composed many Creole songs, some of which she had prepared for Independence Creole song competitions as an individual and as leader of her group of school children from the St. Martin's Primary School. She took part in the Independence Creole song competition with her iconic Quitte Colte la Vive, and she won the competition that year with that song. Part of the song says, Saki de no passaporte douillet accord, Saki de no passaporte gipla accord. She also won several Creole song group competitions with her children from the St. Martin's Primary School. Her songs were always melodious and catchy, and she always found favor with the audiences and with the judges whenever she and her group participated in any competition. She was a prolific songwriter. Almost all of the topics of Sonia's songs dealt with honoring Dominica and its people, and she always promoted Dominica's Creole wear in song and in her performances. About 20 years ago, the Cultural Division assisted Sonia with the recording of her songs, and her songs continue to inspire and entertain Dominicans and visitors alike on radio and at various cultural events. Her songs are played often, especially at independence events and at Wobduet pageants island-wide and overseas. Sonia was a deeply spiritual person, a very staunch Catholic, a very devoted and dedicated teacher, a lover of children, and she had a very kind, friendly, and easygoing disposition and personality. All in all, one can say that Sonia made a major and outstanding contribution to Dominica's educational and cultural development. Her songs, especially Quitte Colte la Vive, have become folk song anthems in Dominica, and every time her songs are played, they stir up and instill a sense of pride in one's culture and country. Her name has become synonymous with folk songs, Creole language, and Creole wear, and she has left behind a rich legacy of folk music and educational contribution. I know that the Comité Poétique Creole KEC will certainly miss her and her dedicated work, and I think all Dominicans will miss the legendary Sonia Lloyd. Once again, I sympathize with her family and all who knew her, and I salute her memory and the great positive impact which she had on the cultural landscape of Dominica and overseas. May she rest in eternal peace.
My name is Jermaine Clark, a former student of the St. Martin's School. Sonia Octavia Lloyd, affectionately known as Miss Lloyd, was a loving, humble woman, always with a pleasant smile on her face from the instant she sees you. She loved her Catholic faith. Miss Lloyd was loved by the majority of all who crossed her path. As a teacher at the St. Martin's School, she was a non-pet. Those days, the St. Martin's School was controlled by the nuns and also the principal. And of course, Miss Lloyd, because of her love and dedication to her Catholic faith, was the pet teacher to the nun, especially Sister Borgia. Miss Lloyd, apart from being a teacher, she was in charge of the school cafeteria. The cafeteria provided meal, that was lunch, to the students who live far from the school or the less fortunate, and lunch would cost 25 cents per student. Sonia would make certain that all students had their meal and cease to eat that they ate what was given. Sonia, Miss Lloyd, taught sewing at the school also. She gave it her all. She made sure that the student understood what was being taught and spent quality time with each individual. Sonia loved her culture. She made St. Martin's School proud when she participated in the Creole song competition with the student. The song Kite called Tel Aviv. Oh boy, the way she sang and moved with grace and pride, and the student followed suit. It was a sight to behold that afternoon. Emerging the winner that year, from then on, she made history in singing and took pride in wearing her complete duet. She was guest artist at various shows. I remember her traveling to the US to show off her talent and culture with pride and dignity. I have fond memories of Miss Lloyd. I loved her. I visited her home. Surely she was a gem.
Kite called Tel Aviv. Well. community person, educator, cultural icon, Sonia Lloyd. Mr. G, I believe that the introduction you gave to this tonight really gave us a good picture of who that Sonia is. But the contributions by all these people really and truly exposed to us probably more than you ever thought when you wrote that piece. Talk to us about that.
Well, the thing is, Pastor Rodney, that every time we do this, we honor somebody as a national hero. I'm always moved by it. What it really tells me, because it all comes to the same thing. I mean, we really want people, no matter what walk of life we come from in Dominica, the thing that we have in common is that we all love our country. And one of the things that has struck me, and I'm so happy that we have people with us tonight, like Wendy and Dr. Simone and Dion and Sobers who left us, and Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd and Arundel and Gregory and Wadix and Nurse, Nurse Rosie Felix, Pastor Rodney, and all the folks who are listening and watching us on Facebook. I'm not even sure that we've had time to acknowledge them. Hopefully, Dr. Simone might help us to acknowledge some of the folks on Facebook and YouTube. But what it tells me, Pastor Rodney, is that Miss Sonia Lloyd is really a true example of a very humble, ordinary woman, who did extraordinary things. And what she did, in fact, her legacy is that she left that for a lot of young people who she tutored, to tell them, listen, you can be extraordinary, you can do extraordinary things. Doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, what your name is. It doesn't matter what part of the country you're from. You are somebody, and you have something that you can give to the world. She demonstrated that. And one of the things I truly appreciated from all of the contributions that we made here tonight, I came away with thinking this, that we should do something. Something should be done in the name of Sonia Lloyd. Somebody may have mentioned something here, and I certainly think that some kind of a culture research institution, as somebody may have mentioned, would be very, very appropriate in Sonia's name, because that would represent what she really was trying to give to Dominica, what she was trying to leave as a legacy, where all this research could be done, not only on the people like Ophelia and Cici Corderon and so on, but on all the work, all the folklore work, and people like Raymond and people like even Adi Henderson, Chaddy Bell, and all these various groups, in other words, in folklore. I mean, even people who did all these court, this Tim Boashes and so on. There should be somewhere a lot of our young people they can go and do this research. And I think it would be of great value to our culture, to our language, to our lifestyle, to our cuisine, to do what we wear, the tradition, and all the herbs and spices and all those things that are our way of life. People say that our food is our medicine. I mean, let's work on that. I mean, and our medicine is our food. So I think it would be very nice. I hope the policy directorate and the people in the cultural division might be listening and might be thinking about it, because I think, and maybe Mr. Rabes might be able to put in a word there in the cultural division, because he's a cultural icon himself. And really, I think something should be done in the name of somebody like Sonia Lloyd. She has really given her life, everything she had, to this country. I think the country should give back something to her, Pastor Rodney.
I agree with you entirely. I agree with you, and in the vein of what both Gregory and Wadik shared tonight, in terms of the ensuring, the thrust to ensure that we not only teach people some things, but we lift people's consciousness of the Dominican culture, because what we see happening now is systematic erosion, if you like, of the things that we should cherish. I heard somebody made a comment some time ago, and I thought it was very sad. And I'm not going to repeat it. I'm just going to create an analysis of it. That when I was growing up, and I'm going to use that to share it. When I was growing up, I've always said so. Before went to school in September, my mother gave me a washout. and and a scrub down. So two things I could expect before I went to school is a washout and a scrub down. My mother would take out every piece of cast I had on my skin before I went to school, and then send me to the barber to have a haircut. Right? Now, I didn't like Sandy, but
Same here.
I had to take it. Right? I didn't like Bovril, but I had to take it. Because my mother said it was good for me. Later on, I realized it was good for me for real. I think what we're doing now is that we are allowing a certain culture where we are going downstream because we are trying to please everybody without teaching them the things that they need to know and have. And if you ask me, I think that's a very dangerous thing that we're doing. I was talking to somebody some time ago, and Gregory's here, and somehow somebody talked about wash, and I said, "Oh, you know a fella they call Washla?" And everybody, Washla, who is that? You'll never heard a fella who used to do some rhythmic poems and so on. He's from the Kalinago territory.
He used to be from there.
Well, remember, they didn't know that. And so I began to ask some other questions about some other people. And lo and behold, I was in the dark. I mean, these people did not know a thing about anybody. And I really believe that opportunities like that should really propel us into not just talking about it, but doing something. Otherwise, one of those days when some of us look back, we won't see anything that resembled who we used to be. And that would be extremely sad. Very often I use some Creole at church and talk to people about some things, and they always ask me what that is. I can't help myself. I was raised in this thing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 20 minutes to 9 o'clock already this evening. And of course, when we begin to talk about people like Sonia, we never have enough time to do that. But at some point we have to say we come to an end. Tonight I'm going to give each of you a few minutes, and I don't even mean a few minutes. Let me get it to 100 seconds. No more than 100 seconds, right? To share some closing comments, and then we will make the presentation that we need to make tonight, honoring Sonia. And so I'm going to start with those of you on the panel with Mr. G, Dr. Simone. I'm going to go back in that order. Dr. Dion. We heard a tribute from Wendy tonight, but she's on the panel with us. And we'll do that in that order. And then Dr. Lloyd, the four of you, each of you have 100 seconds. And then I come to the panel right in studio with me. Let's start with you, Dr. Simone Matthews.
Yes, so again, really a pleasure just being here, being a part of this celebration. And I think Sonia Lloyd said it best herself when she says, Lavi nous c'est ça, Dominique, tout ça nous ni c'est ça, Lavi nous, chair nous, travail nous, talent nous. Everything we are is because of Dominica. So I think it is so important that we continue to honor our cultural icons and our heroes. And how do we do so? How do we continue their legacy? And I think that is what Wadix, Mr. G, and everybody else is alluded to, because this is only one program. This is one program on one particular night in history. But what do we do to continue to honor their legacy by continuing the work that they've done to put us in this position? And I just want to take a couple of seconds. Do I have any more seconds left, Pastor Rodney?
You have
to just
about 10.
Acknowledge our Facebook folks.
You have about 10.
And to thank them for their contribution. We had a lot of great comments coming in from Josephine William, Medina Senhouse, my mom, Owen Prosper, Tessa Phillip, Michael Alexis on YouTube, Marie Terrace Joseph. So guys, thank you so much for being here. Lynthia Packet, Ashby Scotland, Vernell Legrand, Matilda Popo, and Thea Smith. Let's see, Carl Kofi James. So thank you guys. Thank you for being a part of the conversation, and thank you for the congratulatory remarks that you posted on Facebook and YouTube. And with that, again, thank you for our kudos to our Heroes Committee. Always a pleasure being a part of this committee as we continue the work of our icons and our national heroes in Dominica. But the question I have to leave with us this evening is, how do we continue honoring our heroes? How do we continue to propel their legacy so that they do not just become a figure in the past? How did I do, Pastor Rodney?
Good question. We will consider that in a subsequent session. Dr. George.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much, Pastor Rodney, and thank you, Mr. Gregoire. Like I have shared with you, Mr. Gregoire, I always consider kudos to our heroes as a social capital, something that is meant to recognize persons who have contributed to the well-being of Dominicans at home and abroad. And tonight, I want to say congratulations to the family, Dr. Gwyneth, Lloyd, and to all of the panelists for recognizing Miss Sonia Lloyd. I want to leave with one statement, which is I'm so happy that I learned about Miss Lloyd and of course recognize her contribution. And because she was part of the Legion of Mary, I would say this. She says, my soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoice in God, my Savior. Another time she says, it's not my will, but your will be done. And when I look at Miss Lloyd as being a teacher, I see she exemplifies the Mother of God, that she served people, not for wealth, not for recognition, but in service. And I think if I listen carefully tonight, several of the commentators on the voicemails said that she was very humble. And that touched me the deepest. So thank you, and God bless you all. Good night.
Thank you, Dr. George. So far, you all have been keeping with my 100 seconds. Wendy, your 100 seconds is up. Will you just talk to us a bit? You're muted still. You're muted still. Will you unmute your mic?
Yes.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear now.
Okay. So I'm one of the many nieces of Auntie Sonia, and I love that woman. And one of the many things that, like I mentioned before, is that she sparked my creativity. And I never knew Auntie Sonia as an icon or as a hero in Dominica. I just knew her as my auntie, like she was my mom's sister and my auntie. And one of the things that I very much remember about her is that on Sundays when we went to visit her at my grandma's house, that she was always singing, but I never really recognized her as an icon. So, it touches me that all these people who knew her, and obviously I knew that she taught at St. Martin's School, but all of these people who knew her and recognize her as such, and I'm like, oh my God, like that's why I cry, because my auntie, all of these people knew her. And I still think about her. Like it's unbelievable that she's gone, and I will forever cry. Okay, I'm
Thank
done.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Gwyneth, your 100 seconds.
100 seconds. Hi. On behalf of the Lloyd family, extended both near and far, we just want to say thank you so much. And as I listened to everything that everyone had to say, I was taking notes on some of the reoccurring themes I heard that reflected of her spirituality, her humility, her generosity, her unconditional love, her compassion, her dedication to her culture and her people. I just was thinking a while ago, saying our house became actually like a hostel. Tom Son was forever taking in students that did not have a home, or it was too much distance for him to travel back to the country to school. She lived her life of a servant. She was truly a servant of God. And to the family, we loved her dearly. We miss her. I do not think any one of us, including myself, realized the person, the icon that she was to Dominica. I guess when you grew up in the family, we just knew Sonia sang, and she was such a humble person. She did not always tell us what was going on. She would come home and would call her in the night, every night, almost every evening we spoke to her. She goes, "Oh yeah, I went to this dinner and they gave me an award." Just like very nonchalantly, like a passing statement. So this is like an eye awakening to us and the family in realizing, wow, this person was really, God had plans for her. So today, to heart, I'm grateful that God kept her in Dominica because God had a plan for her to take care of my parents when they grew elder, because we were all here. And most importantly, the contribution, her time, her energy, her spirituality to serve Dominica. And I've learned from it, and I'm recommitting myself to giving from wherever we are as Dominicans. We have to give back. We have to continue to promote the culture in whatever small way and big ways that we can. So on behalf of my sister, her legacy lives on through us. We're hoping to have a scholarship award in her name. You'll hear more about that later on from us. But thank you to the kudos. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks
I
to
want to
you.
add that. Yes, thank you.
Thanks to you. All right, and let's get to my panel right here in the studio with me. I'm going to start with Wadix, and then I will end up with my good friend from Lacosetlang. And then we'll make the presentation to the lady who's representing Sonia tonight. Wadix.
Yeah, I will try my best to stick to
my 100 seconds.
100 seconds. God has given us lots of gifts, and at some point in time, they will be taken from us. We are fortunate to have lots of gifts the Father has bestowed on us. What we do with them while they're living going to be the most important aspect of how we learn from them. Listening to the life of this powerful lady, she left the music with us. But how are we going to take the life she lived? And that's a challenge for each one of us, the life that she lived, the lessons that she taught, and instill it in the new generation so we can get a balance. How can we aspire to achieve excellence and stamp out that mediocrity sort of mentality that we've seen creeping in our society, and blend, fuse some of those principles of the late Sonia, a love for country, a love for culture, an undying passion for Creole, and connecting with the ancestors. How we're going to instill that, inject that into young people so that it can live for centuries. That's all I want to remind her. That's what I want to be reminded of her, and to leave the panel just wondering as to ways we can continue to honor legacies of people who have really, their blood and sweat is inculcated into our society, into our community, and teach. She was a teacher. Teach, continue to educate the young people of the works of our living and our gone ancestors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gregory.
Thank you. Ayahora. That's thank you in Kalinago, by the way.
What is it?
Ayahora.
Ayahora.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
Messi in Creole. Okay, just I think I'll just focus quickly on maybe some suggestions for follow-up in terms of legacy and all of that. But I think as a basic principle, all the stakeholders that are implicated in various aspects of their lives should find and develop some ways that they can perpetuate her legacy, whether it's through the Catholic Church, the St. Martin's School, KEC, all the various community, so they could find ways to do that. For example, I mean, even in her community, maybe the family home or some center in Kings Hill could have either a pictorial, a billboard. I mean, Creole Heartbeat is very, they have an experience in doing huge billboards to represent, icons like the cotton slip, so things of that nature. So there's some things that could be done in her community as well, and nationally, and for the various stakeholders. Another thing that's very important for the family, that they will be able to help us in that. She apparently she left a rich catalog of songs that she wrote. The thing is that we may not know what melody she had in her head for some of those songs. Maybe she didn't record them, but these are some things that we could do.
And reproduce them.
Yes. Take the lyrics and put melodies to it, because that can be done, right? Things of that nature. So basically, that's what I would like to suggest, that the various partners, various stakeholders, the community, and so on, find ways to perpetuate your legacy, and the role of the media in all of that. I think the media, you mentioned the fact that maybe some people might not know who is Washla or who is whoever. So the media now has a role, very important role, to perpetuate the memories and the legacies and the works of the thing. If they're not playing Washla, my music, nobody knows my music.
That's right.
So that's it. But Demo quatre paroles sur ça. Merci un pile, merci un chai, merci un lot. C'était un plaisir pour participer au programme ça là.
Yes, my friend.
I would like to confirm for Wendy that all Charlottesville belong, Kings Hill, Lower Kings Hill, Savannah, all of those part of Charlottesville, and the tambour and the shack and the music and everything. And an important and critical question that arises here tonight is what would be a fitting legacy to the memory, a tribute to the memory of Sonia Octavia Lloyd. And one thing I say is with respect to what we do with the Creole or Patois language. Nobody taught Sonia Patois. Nobody taught me Patois, but there was always court at home. My aunt, we always had Creole, Tim washes and all these things. They were natural part of the environment, the cultural environment. Nobody taught us in school. So I'm not all excited about the idea of teaching, the formal teaching of Patois at school. I'm excited more about an infusion of the Creole language. In other words, we should infuse Creole in song, in conte. I don't hear much conte happening. I know a lot of conte myself now because I was just told conte as a child growing up. In the conversation, we need to see this thing, this Patois thing, as something to be proud of, something we can feel proud of speaking, and don't feel like we are country bookies because we speak Patois. We must see it as a liberating experience, a joyful language experience. And we need to have a sort of a cultural and mental revolution in Dominica, where we see Patois as a beautiful thing to live. As we have, par exemple, nous pas un tribute is the correct word, a Creole.
Well, I agree with you, but when I was
célébrer Sonia comme si c'était un Creole, mais nous tous parler anglais ici, parce que nous well, how am I going to express myself in Creole in a tribute to Sonia? So
okay. So I listen. I agree with you. When I was growing up, I left Dominica when I was 13. So what I remember is that we could not listen to Creole. Oh, let's say Patois, right? And I could not speak Patois. If my mother and my aunties and whoever was speaking Patois, we had to go outside. So I'm glad that Auntie Sonia introduced Patois and the dictionary that she worked on. But I would love for our young people, because I don't know much Patois, So, let's get Patois as, when I was in school in Dominica, they taught us French. Why not teach us Patois?
Okay.
What you say. I would say in completion that I came from an enlightened home. My parents talk Patois. We were encouraged to talk Patois, to give Patois conte and whatever it is at home at Charlottesville, situated by my mother and all that. So Patois was natural to me. and then I was an English teacher. So it didn't prevent me from learning and expressing myself in English. So I'm saying as an important thing, we can have an infusion of Creole, not just a formal teaching of it at schools. That's not going to do nothing, because I did French at school, Spanish at school, but it's in speaking and living the language, making sure that you understand this language is not a foreign language. It's like our native blood language. That's how we can honor the memory of Sonia Octavia Lloyd. One of the ways, I think.
Ok, problème là avec patois, c'est ça.
Ouais.
Langage là tellement vivant. Qui les moun parler langage là,
ouais.
Les autres moun ka kwe ou ka dérespecter yo.
Ouais.
Parce langage là ni coulé. Langage là ka vive assez contre koy.
Ouais.
Il pas besoin les autres bail pour faire vivre. Comme ça si ou dit en parole autant à des moun ka kwe ou ka insulter yo.
Ou ka jire yo.
Eh ben ça te aide.
Si yo contre fesse yo, comme si on jire.
Hello. Pastor Rodney and
ça là, ma pièce avocat kay banou débat avec ça. Maman moi de dit avec oui. Bah moi grand-papa moi enfin t'es qu'a dit même si mon mal oui, ma ka bon docteur.
Bon docteur, c'est ça y est.
Mais
anyway, I'm so sorry, but what I'm hearing there is a little
bon Dieu, mais c'est ça qui est là.
Ouais.
Quand même.
Jalousie à baglo.
Merci pour ça.
let me just make one. We talked about quickly about the role of the media. One of the important things about the role of the media is to make sure you have what they call politically correct terminology. Mm-hmm. The use of the word patwa is an outdated term.
Yeah,
so would encourage you guys to really desist from using the term patwa, except in a particular context. You might say, well, back in the days and so on and so on. But one of the important things about the International Creole Movement and KEC was that we worked towards dispensing with the use of the term patwa because it has very negative connotations. In the same way that the Kalinago dispensed with the use of the word Carib. So we have dispensed with the use of the word patwa because patwa is a Eurocentric term which sort of looks at certain types of languages that are associated with European language as broken languages, not fully fledged languages. And internationally, in Haiti, in Guadeloupe, Martinique, they don't ask you, "Usa parle patwa?" No, they say, "Usa parle Creole." So the Creole now is the UNESCO and international recognized term for the language. Now, when we speak about Creole now, C-R-E-O-L, we're referring to the wider Creole culture, not necessarily the language. So it's important to get the terminology right when we do our discourse. And
thank you.
Merci au Pilaco.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg. We're going to come to Nurse Felix in a while, and she's going to be receiving on behalf of the family and on behalf of Sonia. So I don't see showing next to me yet, and if he's listening, I know once the door is open, then Sherwin is there. So we're going to do the presentation first, Nurse, and then you will give us a little thank you, and then I will get Mr. G to bring the curtains down on tonight, right? So that we're going to do on behalf of the Kudos for Q, the Kudos for Our Heroes Committee tonight, which is what we usually do. And although Sonia has passed, we wanted to make sure that we did that. So Sherwin, yes, come. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you listening, we are doing this presentation now, and as we honor Sonia Lloyd for her work in Dominica, her work as a community person, her work as a teacher, and her work, importantly, as a cultural icon. So we present this plaque to Nurse Rosie Felix, on behalf of the family, for Sonia Lloyd. And although Sonia is not here, but we believe that we give flowers. We give real live flowers, no ready-made nothing, real live flowers. And so we will also present you that bouquet of flowers. For those of you who were not watching this because you're listening on radio, we just presented a lovely bouquet of flowers here to Nurse Rosie Felix, who is sitting in here receiving this honor that we are giving to Sonia Lloyd. Nurse Felix, on behalf of the family, of course, and on behalf of Sonia, your comments.
Yes, the late Buple sang, some of us just got to stay at home. Well, God knew this before Buple. And when he gives us a purpose, he decides where we must stay, where we must live to carry out that purpose. And this is the very reason why Sonia did not go to the US with her sisters to live and die there, but she's raised the standard of our culture. And as everybody expressed, we need to maintain that standard so that it can go from generation to generation. We also saw her living out her purpose in her teaching the academics, teaching the spiritual, and teaching by her very life. Sonia lived her purpose here on Dominica, and she's left us a great legacy. I am thankful once more to the family who have asked me to represent Sonia. And as Sonia, you all heard, she's Catholic. Tomorrow is All Souls Day. I'm going to take this to her grave. I'm sure Dr. Gwyneth will endorse this. And of course, I will get this plaque to her family. So thank you, all of you who have contributed. And everything we've heard about Sonia is so true. I'm looking forward to seeing things happen. In fact, in my mind, I can already see Sonia Lloyd Cultural Center in Dominica. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Marubi and Mr. Norway's the parents of Longona. I knew her parents and all her sisters. It's so emotional tonight to represent the family, and I thank them for all their love for myself and my family, and of course, giving us their Sonia, not dragging her to the US against her will, but respecting her as their sister, leaving her here to live out her legacy and give Dominica all of her life as she sang in her song. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Felix. Let me as well say thanks to all of you who join us here tonight. Thank you, my friend Arundel, and I have not seen Gregory that close in quite some time. Thank you, Gregory, for being here, and my colleague and worker on this committee. Thank you, Wadix. Thank you. I heard him very emotional this morning, but thank you very much, Mr. G. Your comments before we just shut this down tonight.
Yes, my very, very brief comments, Pastor Rodney. First thing I want to just note is that I listened to Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd a little earlier, and she mentioned something which almost slipped me. I think she said that she had come down on vacation or something, and I think she said that Sonia took her to an exhibition at the St. Martin School, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and for those of us who are old enough maybe Wadix and Gregory, if you're old enough, Pastor Ron, you might remember, we had this trade show at the St. Martin School in the 70s, 78, I think it was around that time. And I happened to have the privilege of coordinating and putting that trade show together with a lot of other people. We had a great time. A lot of culture was mixed in, art and exhibition and so on, and product. It was great for 2 weeks. So I just thought I would mention that. You see how coincidences can take place here. And then, of course, I think the idea of a scholarship in Sonia's name is a terrific thing, because, she is teaching, a teacher. That legacy, I think, would be very appropriate. But I also believe that the recommendations made by Gregory, that in many different ways, in small ways, in the community, in different ways, her legacy can be shown there. But I certainly believe that if an institute could be named after her, with all that research and all the things that she cared about, because she really wanted Dominica, listen to the songs and you see lyrics of the songs. And so all of the research and the knowledge, a lot of young people don't even know about Alwyn Bully and People's Action Theatre and New Dimension Theatre. They don't know about all of those things and all of the good works that were done, on the great plays and drama and so on that was put on. So I think if an institute was there to be doing that kind of research, a lot of the young people would really know a lot more, not just about her legacy, but about all of the legacies of all the heroes that have been involved in culture and music and entertainment and art and drama and poetry and book publishing and writing and so on. I think this would be a good start. Let's see, in fact, whether this is something that can become a reality. But I really want to thank everybody here tonight, Pastor Rodney, for turning out. I think it's really a delight, a joy to do that, especially when you're recognizing someone who is so humble and he had such a great impact that is going to last forever on our communities and on our nation and our Dominicans at home and abroad. Every Dominican is playing that song everywhere they go. In England, they're playing her songs. Some of them may not know, but they're playing her songs. And so at National Day time, her songs are these songs, and Raymond Lawrence said it. So Pastor Rodney, thank you for anchoring for us here tonight. Leroy Wadix, Gregory, Arundel, Dr. Gwyneth, Wendy, Dr. Simone, Dion, all of those folks, Sobers, all the folks who are listening and watching on Facebook and on YouTube, all the folks who are in radio land near and far, we know you're listening everywhere. I thank you so much for joining us here tonight, and I hope you're as proud as we are of our dear, beloved, departed Sonia Lloyd. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. G, and have a good night all. Thanks for being here, gentlemen and ladies. God bless you. We look forward again to doing that sometime soon as we honor another hero here on Kudos for our heroes. Have a very good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night, Nose Rosie. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Seja de, seja de, seja de, seja de, por não começar. garçon et fille d'homme fini avec. Yo check au santé, changer bien nous pas mériter ni africain. Nous c'est dans pitcher. Cause I'm the papa pour cancer. Ah oui, j'ai nous contenter, nous c'est dans pitcher. Kawaii la, on a discuté pour cultivation.